What's up, guys? It's Alexander, obviously. Question I got this morning that I don't actually think I've recorded a full podcast on. Probably should. But question concerned the concept of bulking cutting. Specifically, the gentleman that asked this question, it was a fairly standard situation. He weighed 150. He wants to know if he should bulk to, I think 165, he said. And then can he cut down to, I guess, 155, 160, 165, and is that a good strategy? Oh, and he also wanted to use starting strength to do this. No, and no. I know you guys have listened regularly, I've talked about this many times, but traditional bulks, the way they're done by most people, it just ends up being a dirty way to gain weight. You gain muscle mass, but you also gain a lot of fat mass, and then in the process of losing the weight that you gained, you lose a lot of the lean body mass that you put on. And it's just not that efficient, honestly. The other factor being that if you bulk up and, let's say 50-50, let's say you put on 30 pounds, but you also put on, 15 pounds of fat, obviously, along with 15 pounds of muscle, and usually it's more fat gain than muscle gain. Well, if you're gonna go to lose weight, then when you are losing body weight and you're cutting down the fat that you gained, it's not necessarily a situation where the muscle that you put on where it's sticking. A lot of the muscle that you gain, it might just be muscle glycogen. It might be just water weight of it itself. It might be that maybe you gain 30 pounds and really only 8 pounds of that is dry muscle tissue. That could be another factor. So the idea that you're going to use that very successfully and you're going to put on X amount of muscle, the idea of, let's say, 10, 15, 20 pounds, and then you're going to keep all of that muscle when you cut, it really just, it doesn't happen. Unless you are an absolute beginner, novice in your first 2 years of training, and you just need to, at that point, you just need to eat and grow and be reasonable about it, then yeah, you could bulk, so to speak, in the manner of just your training to gain weight and your calories are set up where you have a little bit of a surplus, you're eating enough to support that. But for anyone else that's beyond the beginner stage, or even if you're older, if you're in your 30s, 40s, and you're thinking that you need to bulk to put on size, you don't need to bulk. The reality is muscle growth, they're very basic. You train progressively, progressive overload, as I've said many times, progressive overload, compound movements, you eat enough, and you eat as much as you need, and that's it, and you do that year round. That's the formula. You don't need to be in a 1,000 calorie surplus, you don't need to be in a 500 calorie surplus, you don't need to be, at least for most guys, you don't need to be stuffing and gorging your face every single fucking meal to put on weight, unless you are, let's say, a hard gainer where you really struggle to just eat enough calories in the first place. And you don't have a big appetite. Now, for the majority of people, you can gain muscle at a maintenance level of calories. You can gain, there's even evidence you can gain muscle in a calorie deficit if you are overweight and you have a lot of excess, energy to draw upon. That's your body fat will compensate for your energy deficit. But the misconception, the myth that you need to bulk to put on size and bulking is the way to go about it, and then you cut to show up the size, it's not real. It's not true. For bodybuilders, for guys with really good genetics, honestly, professional level bodybuilders or natural bodybuilders that do have the kind of genes, the kind of genetic phenotype where they can gain muscle, and fat, and they keep the muscle when they lose the fat. Yes, some guys can bulk and cut, and it works well for them. Relative to modern man, and this is the reality of it. Relative to modern man, modern state of masculine health and society, with most men being overweight or just even if they're not overweight, but have low testosterone or high estrogen levels, poor insulin sensitivity, overall just a non-optimized state of health. Also the factor that if you have been, let's just say, non-athletic your whole life and you're not a naturally strong, buff guy, you don't have those kinds of genetics, the bulk and cut route is not going to work for you. Bulking and cutting works for probably maybe 1 in 6, 1 in 7 guys who can use that and do it successfully year after year, and it's to their benefit. For everybody else, if you're not that kind of guy where you don't put on muscle easily and you don't strip off fat easily, you're not naturally lean, etc., it's not for you. It's not for you. The guys that know that bulking and cutting works for them, they know it works. They have the genetics that it works for. There's a reason why it's popular with bodybuilders, as I said before. For a lot of guys that get into bodybuilding, you're talking about guys that are naturally inclined to be muscular. They're naturally inclined to be strong. They find bodybuilding easy in a certain way, since, like I said, their gifts that way are just higher than the average person. So they bulk and cut, and it works well for them, and naturally they carry an assumption that, oh, well, this must work well for everybody. And traditional bodybuilding is, very predicated on the idea of bulking and cutting. But for regular population people, it just, as I said, it does not work that well. It has too many pitfalls, downfalls to it, than it has advantages. And at the same time, it also just has the common scenario that happens where you bulk up and you cut down and you weigh exactly the same. I've seen that happen with, I can't even tell you how many guys. They tried to bulk up and they cut down and they weighed maybe 2-3 pounds more. And they spent 6 months or 8 months just being fucking fat, or a year being fat. And what for? No good reason. It just ended up just being a sort of a waste of their time, if nothing else. So they spend a year now being out of shape, or they find it harder now to lose body fat because they gain so much body fat trying to bulk. I've seen that happen too, where it ends up screwing with your health more than it benefits. So you don't need to do it. You train progressively, you eat enough, you do that the rest of your life. Long-term continuum. I do not favor short-term approaches. You guys know that. This stuff is longevity. You have to take a lifelong perspective to it. Isn't it bad for you to go up and down your weight? Yeah, it is. There's also that factor too, where you might reset your body weight. You might end up screwing up your body weight set point, where now you are kind of fatter than you were before, and making that go down again, that could be an issue. I'm putting a sunshade up, hence why the camera is moving everywhere. Any questions, guys, though? It was a bit of a rambling one, but I get asked this a lot. I'll record a podcast on it for posterity's sake, since it is probably worth covering. But if you're just hopping on right now, it looks like a bunch of you did. Bulking and cutting, you don't need to do it that way. You gain muscle long term, you train long term, you eat reasonably, you do that the rest of your life, you'll get to whatever your maximum muscular potential is. And again, speaking pragmatically, you're going to hit about 90 to 95% of your maximum muscular gains within 5 years if you train correctly. And any progress past that point, it is measured in fucking half-pound increments, if even that. Thoughts on HIIT using just body weight motions, if you want to. Honestly, if you want to, there's nothing special about that. HIIT training, cardio can be done in a variety of ways. You can do it that way. You can do cardio any which way you want. That just comes down to personal preference oftentimes. If you want to use body weight work to do HIIT training, HIIT cardio with, well, I guess, burpees, lunges, sprints, I guess that could count as body weight work. Sure, go ahead. Anything else, gentlemen? And ladies? Yes, no, maybe so, guys. I just had coffee, so I'm ready to go lift. Eating right and exercising takes motivation. How to keep it going or even get started. How do you want to fucking die?